Well, I'd like to thank you all for showing up on this beautiful spring day. This is a great way to kick this off. My name is Darryl Gaybauer, and I am the new Vice President of Finance and Administration. I can still say I'm new. I've been here for about 3.5 months, and so I keep getting introduced as the new Rick Turley, and I guess that's okay. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is a topic that I know has been very top of mind to everyone, not just in this room, but really everyone on campus, and that's campus safety. And I'm going to talk to you about some things that we have been doing, and I'm also going to let Ed Tomasevich, who is our Director of Building and Grounds, and he has responsibility for the public safety group. He's going to go up here and talk about a few things as well. And then I'm going to turn the program over to Mark Byington and Diane Skanga, and they're going to dig in a little bit deeper on some threat assessment issues and just some things that we can do as a community. So first of all, I want to talk about the campus-wide survey that we did over the last 2 weeks. I think we had a pretty decent response. We had 163 people that responded. 66% of the respondents were staff, 15% faculty, and 17% from the student community. One of the things that we asked was, do you have a concern personally about safety on the campus? And it was pretty well split. About 51% actually said yes, 49% said no. So 49% saying no is, not horrible, but it's also not where we'd like to be. We'd like that to be closer to everybody thinking that there are no safety concerns. So we asked, well, what time of day is most concerned? Not surprisingly, evening and late night came up as really the number one time of day. What areas? Parking lots and walkways. So those areas that maybe are a little bit more remote came up as the highest concern. And then we asked, well, what are the things that would give the most significant impact to helping campus safety? And we gave some choices, and not surprisingly, if you think of evening and late night as being the thing of most concern, the number one thing that came up as what we could do would be exterior lighting, upgrading the exterior lighting. Call boxes and panic buttons, and also the increased presence of law enforcement on campus. So we'll talk a little bit more about some of the things that we're already doing in exterior lighting and some of these areas when Ed gets up and speaks. So it was, for all of you who did take the time to respond to the survey, I thank you. We really are interested in what you have to say, and we want to act on those things as well. The other thing that I want to talk about is our public safety supervisor position. The position has actually been vacant since December, and we've been talking a lot about what to do with that position and with public safety on campus in general. And so we kind of took a two-pronged approach. We went outside to some outside security companies. We invited, I think, 8 or 9 companies to submit bids. We actually got bids from 4 companies. And at the same time, we also advertised for an internal hire to replace the position that we had before. Well, so why did you do both things? Well, we're kind of trying to cover all of our bases here. And if the bids from the security companies were to come in and just be, just totally out of the water, we wanted to be ready with the next step. And so we're analyzing those bids that came in last Friday. We're analyzing those bids now. We've received a number of applications for the internal position, and some very good applications. So our plan is to, I'll be talking with Dr. Comiskey about it next week, and then we'll have a final decision ready to present to the May board meeting. That's the plan. But in the interim, there really has been no loss of service during that time. Our public safety team is still intact. They're reporting directly to Ed, which puts a little bit of strain on Ed's time, but they're really doing all the things that they've been doing. They file all their incident reports. They take care of everything that needs to be taken care of. So rest assured that public safety is still working for everyone here on campus. and that we are working to try and get that supervisor position filled. The next thing, here's some of the things that we have been kind of looking at, and some of the things that we have been doing. Two-way radio communication, we added some channels. Is that right?
We've upgraded our.
Yeah, upgraded it, so we have better communication directly with the local law enforcement. And also, it's called blue screen or desktop alert. We actually have a system in place, and we were doing some testing on it yesterday to make sure that it's still working. But this is basically where on your laptop computers we can send messages, and it actually comes out from the public safety office if there is any kind of a threat on campus, or if we need you to vacate the building, or if we need to lock down the building, we can send those messages out. And the other thing we're going to look at is we believe that we can interface those messages with smart boards in the classroom, so we can really broadcast these in kind of a large view. And the only thing you need to do is when you come into the classroom, you need to make sure that your computers are turned on. You don't have to be logged into the system or anything. You just need to make sure that a computer is on, and that way, if a message needs to be broadcast, we'll be able to publish it and broadcast it out on a smart board. Viking text messaging is another way that we can get information out to everybody on campus. And we had some issues with that this winter. Some of you may have not gotten messages that we sent out for snow days. Anybody affected by that? Yeah. So what we found out was it was a capacity issue. Basically, there was a limit to the number of people that could be opted in, and that message could be broadcast to at one time. So we did a couple of things. One of the things we realized is that we allowed people to opt in to text messaging, but we never gave any way for people to opt out. So people who are no longer on campus, people who have retired, people who have left employment, they may have still been getting text messages, and they didn't need it. So we're trying to clean that up, and also trying to kind of break up the messaging into finite numbers so that we can actually meet the capacity issues as well. That also was going to be tested yesterday, and I don't have the results of the test, but I will follow up with that. The other thing we're looking at is actually being able to send text messages through office phones. If you have a phone with a display on it, you can do that today. So if I want to send a message to Julie, I can do that. We can't necessarily do it on a campus-wide broadcast, so we're looking to see if there's a way we can do that. And then the other thing is looking at our cell phone coverage with AT&T. How many people have AT&T? Yeah, me too. How many people have problems with AT&T on campus? Yeah, me too. So we're talking to AT&T, and we have to have patience. Obviously, when you're working with a company as large as AT&T, it's kind of like talking to the government. It takes a while, but we're working with them to see, is there something we can do to upgrade the cell phone coverage on campus? I mean, they are the largest cell phone carrier in the county, but the coverage here is just, it's not good. And that's an important safety concern for me, and I'm sure for all of you. We want to be able to get, we have these cell phones, it's great, but we can't get to them, and well, wait just a minute while I restart my phone, and I'll get the message out. So that's something hopefully they'll be able to help us with, and we will continue to work with AT&T. But the thing is, communication, and you'll hear more about this when Mark and Diane get up here, but communication is a key, obviously, to making the campus safe. We have to be able to get word out to you. We have to be able to communicate what you need to do. And so we're trying to develop as many communication modules as we can to make sure that the message gets out. So what I want to do now is I want to turn this over to Ed and let him talk about a couple other things that we're looking at and working on right now.
Thank you, Daryl. For those of you that don't know me, I am Ed Tomaskevich. I'm the Director of Buildings and Grounds here. Not to make a plug or anything, but I have Verizon and I have excellent coverage. I can actually make and receive calls even from the basements of some of these buildings. I'm going to go over some of the current things that we're doing now on campus, just so everybody's up to date on that. At the Child Care Center, we recently installed approximately 10 new cameras, security cameras there. And so we've got that area both in the standalone building as well as the area over in the area technical school. Both locations have new cameras, and we're in the process of looking at some different locks for the doors in that building. We may go to the card swipe lock, we're not sure. Right now, we're just investigating a number of different alternatives. Let's see, exterior lighting. We are currently replacing the parking lot and sidewalk lights. As they burn out, we have found a brighter, more efficient, more energy efficient bulb through our lighting supplier. So we're currently doing that. We're hoping down the road, if the money's available, to be able to just do a mass replacement, but right now, we're currently doing them as a light bulb burns out. We're replacing it with it's a brighter, whiter light that it creates. We're also looking into the issue of emergency call boxes. I think, if I'm not mistaken, IT is looking into that, correct? I see if there are some wireless alternatives that would be available so that we wouldn't have to go through a major construction issue, having to install wires and all that. The other thing I want to say about the exterior lighting, we've currently started also installing new wall packs on the buildings. Those are the rectangle lights that mount on the side of buildings, and where we have found some very bright LED lights, so they're extremely energy efficient, and we're starting to replace some of those as well. So that'll help light up sidewalk areas around the building. Again, you know, those things are very expensive, some of them as much as $500–600 a piece. But as you know, some of those burn out, we're replacing them with the newer ones. So I just want to make sure everybody's aware of that. We're also looking at our timers and photocells that control the lighting, making sure that we've got better control of that so that the lights are turning on when they should, turning off when they should. Currently, we have a lot of these mechanical timers, and we're hoping to switch to digital, which will give us a little bit more control over that. Let's see, fire alarm upgrade. We are in the process of taking bids. In fact, tomorrow, we're going to have our first pre-bid meeting with potential contractors to upgrade our fire alarm system in the CTE building and the tech center. The systems we have in all of our buildings are fairly old, and we want to get to a system that if a fire alarm is pulled, it would notify a monitoring service. So that monitoring service would call dispatch right away. That would be another option, for example, if you're in a building, and this is used frequently, the fire department doesn't always like it, but if you're in a building and there's a situation, you can always then pull a fire alarm and at least know that dispatch, 911 dispatch has been notified. Currently, some of our buildings, that's not possible simply because of the old fire alarm systems we have. You know, this is just a small sample of some of the things we're doing. We're also going to be looking at other things over the next year. We're going to be replacing our those brown wooden directional signs that we have on campus with lighted signs. So that'll also provide more light on campus as you drive around. We're going to increase our signage both at the building entrances and around campus, reminding people that the buildings are under video surveillance. So we feel that having more of that notice around will help deter some issues. Let's see.
And on the fire alarm upgrade, that's really, that's an annual program, so we're doing
Yes.
2 buildings, I guess, we're going to look at 2
This
buildings for
year,
this
2
coming
buildings
year.
this year.
And ultimately, the idea is how we should get all the buildings onto that same
Right,
system.
right. The other thing I wanted to cover real quickly is, just so everybody's aware, when to call 911. We want everyone to call public safety, 3500, but there are times where we really insist that you call 911 first before calling public safety. And we're going to post this on STARS, so anybody will be able to get this printed off if they want that in their office or in their classroom. But any time any of these incidents occur, 911 should always be called first. You can do that from your office phone. If you do it from an office phone or a campus phone, we are made aware of that at public safety. A little message pops up on our computers there that tells us 911 was called. It tells us the extension that called 911. Sometimes we have some errors. People think they're dialing out and they mistakenly dial 911. But nowadays you can call 911 from your cell phone and still reach the dispatch. And obviously, again, after calling 911, we would want you to call 3500, or if you're calling from your cell phone, it'd be the 481-3500 number. So, and I think that's all I've got. Am I turning it over now to Mark? Or?
Anybody have any questions about what we talked about? Yes, sir.
With the fire alarm system, you were talking about it, sending it directly to 911.
The fire alarm system would probably go through a monitoring service initially.
Okay, would they call 911?
Then they would call 911.
Because the problem you're gonna run into is that if they call 911 and they dispatch and it's a nuisance call, a lot of fire departments have a $1,000 fee that they're gonna charge you every time they respond to a nuisance call.
Sure.
It would probably be better if they sent it directly to security, let them check it, and then call them.
We'll have to look at that.
If not, it's gonna cost you a fortune, kids pulling in the.
Sure, sure, yeah. We'll have to look into that then. Thank you.
Roger?
I agree with all the things that you guys have presented this morning in terms of increased campus safety and awareness. One suggestion that I might make, and again, I understand that your staff is so limited at this point, would be more visible officers walking through our buildings. You guys do a great job in terms of, I think, vehicular presence, but the physical presence in our buildings, I think, would go a long way.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and that was actually a comment that was made, several comments were made to that in the survey, so we're definitely going to take that under advisement and look at that.
Anything else?
Okay.
Okay, Diane?
Good morning. Now it's time for the Mark and Diane show. Okay. We're going to talk about campus security from a little bit different angle. Mark is the associate professor with the Criminal Justice Department here at Jefferson College. I'm Diane Skanga. I'm the director of the public safety programs here at the college. And Mark has law enforcement background, academy training background, and so do I. So that's kind of our background and where we're coming at and some of the training that we want to at least introduce to you. This is a process today, okay? This is just the beginning of a process. You can see that the school's taking the facilities and that, you know, hardware stuff and trying to do what they can. Well, what Mark and I want to introduce is a way that you can be part of the safety initiative as well. And what you can do to keep yourself safe, not only on campus, but anywhere you go, the process that we want to talk. We're not going to be able to answer all your questions. We're not going to be able to quell all your fears. We understand that. This is our presentation. But we want to get you, we want to jumpstart that thought process to see where we're going. Our faculty and our staff is the most valuable resource that we have at the school. The administration knows that. That's why they're addressing these issues. So we're going to get started with this. Our goal today, did I miss one? No, okay. Our goal today is safety. That's really what our goal is today. And you can read this, and it's all, very nice, and we're educators, so of course we have to have a lot of words to say our goal is your safety. So that's what our goal is today. And it is an approach, and it's a process that we're going to go through, but it basically comes down to the safety of everybody that works here, everybody that visits here, everybody that's in class here. We want Jefferson College to be synonymous with a safe environment, and you're going to be healthy and all that. Then we get into the first step, and this is even more appropriate today with the rain, okay? I could have been a meteorologist. So really and truly, the question is, when it comes to safety, when did Noah build the ark? Well, he built it before the rain started. That's because he recognized danger signs. And he recognized a threat assessment and took it from there. So that's what we want to do for you, is introduce ways that you become aware of your environment and aware of what your limitations may be, or what you have accessible to you that you may not even know about yet. Okay? Mark and I are going to trade off, so I'm going to trade off to Mark now, and we're going to keep going through this. Okay? I'm sorry?
Top one, there we go.
Okay.
All right. Let's point out to start with the understanding of some truths so that we can put our minds a little bit at ease, but also be aware of the situation. Campuses are generally safer than any other business and institution as it relates to violence. Generally safer. Serious violent crimes are more frequent in restaurants than at schools and colleges. Okay? But the key thing here is restaurant violence is not a subject of public concern. Situations of Columbine, of Virginia Tech, of Sandy Hook has made campus security from elementary schools up to universities a key element in safety and a key concern. Because the violence that occurs generally at those institutions have a greater number of those injured or affected than the violence that would occur at a restaurant. So it becomes our priority. For us, it is our number one priority. Knowledge and awareness is going to be the key to safety. We can change all the lighting. We can add officers on campus, but we can't put a person in every room, in every hallway, in every parking lot. But what we do have in all those are staff, faculty, and students, and community. So the more they're aware of situations and of their environment, the more safer we become. And the more knowledgeable they come from what they're supposed to look for, the more safer we all are. Going always back to the slide pertaining to Noah. So if we see and understand what a threat looks like at the base level, then we don't have to worry about the incident occurring to cause physical harm. If we can intervene at that point, and that's what we want to look at. And as the presentation goes on, we'll address the end result if a physical situation does occur. I introduced this briefly on Friday to most of the faculty. For a lot of you might not be familiar with it. But to improve decision making, it is impossible to identify a plan. If I tell you specifically what the threat is, or specifically what you're supposed to do, and that changes even remotely, then I've not properly prepared you. But if I can get across to you the understanding of an implicit ideal or thought, then you can adjust on the fly and make a change that makes you safer. So how do I get that across to you? How do I get that across to the students? Well, that's through the OODA loop. And that is simply how we think or process. And it was developed by John Boyd to help fighter pilots and combat veterans deal with decision-making under fire. And it is now being used by business schools at Harvard and Yale to actually explain the process of any situation when we're making a decision. So what we simply want to start doing is starting to understand how we process or how we think, especially under stressful situations. Breaking down, it's an acronym, the OODA loop is observe, become aware of your danger, orient yourself to your options, decide, determine your best response, and act, to carry out your plan to your best ability. Now this is a loop, it is not a circle, it is not a continue. You don't continually go back to an action. You'll see this in a minute to the process that takes place. And you'll see why it's important to understand that process, especially in a threat situation. This is what it is. This is John Boyd's original drawing. I put it up Friday a couple times, but I also put the one that you may see on presentations as a circle. Well, Colonel Boyd was very explicit in his commands that this is the OODA loop. Because as you can see, you're continually rotating back to observation, and you're continually making adjustments. And that is what really goes on for us. So I'll use the example of a fire, and you're coming out of your office, and you have made a decision because the route initially says that you're supposed to go out of your office and turn left and go out the exit because it's the nearest exit. But as you turn left, lo and behold, there's the fire. Well, if it's a circle deal, you'd have to stand there, observe, decide, and act. What he's simply saying, the moment you step out, you see a flame, you immediately shift and go in the opposite direction. And so that loop starts all over again. You don't have to take an action. Your action was immediate. Your decision was to turn right. I can't turn right. I turn left. You move. Okay? And that's what he was simply saying. It's just an ongoing thing. And the better we understand it, the more we make people aware as it relates to situational awareness, the better we become in decision making. Orientation becomes then a key, because the more information, the more knowledge we put within that area, within that subject, the more decisions and the faster I can work through the loop.
When we get to situational awareness, as Mark was saying, and he mentioned with the fire, situational awareness and the decision making that you've been doing it since the beginning of time. When you started to ride a bicycle, you were actually processing the OODA loop. You didn't know what the acronym was, you didn't know what the stages were that you were doing, but simplistically speaking, that's what you were doing. You were employing the OODA loop, and you do that all the time. What we want to do is just give you that thought process that you do have more control and you have more action than you may think is available, and to bring you to a state of situational awareness. In law enforcement, we are always asking people to be aware of your surroundings. If you're aware of your surroundings, you can see a threat assessment long before it becomes an imminent danger. So that's what we want to do, and we want to keep impressing that on you. When we talk about situational awareness, observe is the very first key element of the OODA loop. Everything else that you do is based on your observations. You can't orient, you can't make good decisions, you can't act well if you haven't made good observations. So that's why we want to start with that. And that situational awareness is where you pick up on that thought process that, yeah, I think there's a threat and I think I'm in danger and I should probably do something about it. The problem with the situational awareness is we live in a world, fortunately, okay, most of the time we're pretty oblivious to what we're doing, okay, really and truly. Women typically were really bad at it, okay, because when we're, and I've used this example before, when we're on the Schnucks parking lot, we're already thinking about what our next stop is, you know, because we're already at Schnucks. So now we're already thinking about, okay, when I get done with this, then I need to go do this and this and this. You know, men are normally more aware of their situational awareness, because when you're on the Schnucks parking lot, that's exactly where you're at. You have no clue where you're going next, okay? So, but just, so think of that process sometimes, okay? So that's what we want to do, is make you be more aware of your situation and where you're at and what you're going into. Just a hypothetical situation. Now, I talked about the bicycle. When you're on the bicycle, you know that you need balance and you fell, so so you observe that you don't have balance, and your observations and your actions are then on, boy, that really hurt when I fell. What do I need to do to get better at my balance? And then you acted on those thought processes. The same thing happens. In a hypothetical situation, and unfortunately you turn on the news and it's happening, let's say a person has made a decision to commit a violent act. And mass killing, that's what everybody's here for. That's what the fear is. We can't change that fact. We can't change what that person's decision has been to start with. So we can't change the fact, but we can change when we become aware of some of those danger signs or become aware of the threat. And then when, we want to know, when would you like to make that decision? Thinking of that. He's going to come on, I say he, and I don't mean that. It could be a she. We're mean, okay? I know some of you, that's a stretch, but,
Historically,
historically masculine, yeah. Historically, mass killings are men. Some people say women drive it through it. I don't know. Okay? But at the parking lot, would you rather see this person coming onto the lot, or would you rather wait till they're at the front door of your school building? Obviously, you'd rather see them coming onto the lot, correct? It gives you a lot more time to make decisions and react or act to that situation. If they get on the parking lot, nobody's seen them. Do you want to be aware of them when they're at the front door? Or do you want to wait until they're in the hallway, where now you have even fewer options? And it just keeps going down. In the hallway, or you want to wait till they're in your classroom? Obviously, we obviously want to see this threat before the first shot, not after everything started. Because once it's all started and once the shooting begins, your actions become even more limited. So that's where the situational awareness of just being aware of what's going on, looking at people, looking at actions. You see these students more than anybody else. You have an idea of what's typical action for them, and that's where you need to start processing the information. Now, I know when we start talking about FBI, you're just all on Twitter, aren't you? Yeah. Well, the FBI's right this time. I'm just throwing it out there for you. But the FBI and the Secret Service have both put out recommendations that school shootings have been prevented because of students reporting a threat to authorities. And they got to them before it happened. And you've heard it on the news where they say, well, Jeff said that he was going to do this, and somebody reports it to authorities. Authorities were able to stop that threat. You obviously don't hear those as often as you hear the mass killings because schools don't want it out, and there's a bunch of stuff that goes on. And it's not big news because nobody got hurt, so that's not the big news yet. So based on these observations, the FBI and Secret Service says they want to adopt a threat assessment approach. We don't want you, we want you to just understand what threat assessment. And we want you to understand what you can do based on that threat assessment. So everybody's worried, and of course I come from a law enforcement background, so you're all thinking, those dirty coppers, they're profiling. That's what they're doing. We're not profiling. We're identifying situations, and we're identifying, it's big picture stuff. We're not telling you to single out, because somebody wears a black trench coat, well then that's profiling. If they wear a black trench coat and they write papers about killing students, now we're getting into threat assessment. Do you see the difference there? Big picture. It's a lot of things that's going on. It's not one individual, typically not one individual act unless it would be an overt threat made. So profiling, we want to look at the difference between the profiling and the threat assessment. The threat assessment, like I said, is this big picture. It relies on the overall behavior indicators with the environmental clues that come along with it. If somebody writes a paper and you feel that it's threatening in a manner, don't just look at the paper, look at everything else that's going on in that student. Did they start out the semester being happy-go-lucky, and then they told you that something happened at home, and there's just a whole waterfall or a cascade effect. That's what we're talking about with threat assessment. We're not asking you to look at one person and say, well, they're wearing a black trench coat, so I'm going to worry about them. You have to look at everything, okay? This is you? Yeah, that's you.
Both the FBI and the Secret Service has unequivocally rejected profiling. There are key reasons as it relates to issues that we're discussing here for campus safety. Okay, there are two key reasons. They are so rare that possibility of detecting them is unrealistic. They are not specific enough for us to create a profile that says this individual will be an active killer or will cause an act of violence. We don't have that much data. It doesn't occur that often. It sounds like it does, because most of us remember an incident because of its severity as if it happened yesterday. So they're all compiled together from Jonesboro to Columbia to Columbine to Virginia Tech to Sandy Hook. But in most cases, they're decades apart. So we don't have that much data per se. The other key thing is the characteristics shared by much of the feelings of those persecution, mistreatment, preoccupation with video games. This came out after Columbine. Several of the experts, a couple of them that Diane and I have worked with and know, use these things saying, well, it's video games that are causing this. No, it is not. It is not specifically unique to that. If that was the case, because of video sales, we'd have an onslaught of acts of violence done by teenagers and adults in their 20s. It's just not the case. But there's key things that we go back to, and I want to emphasize and give you an example for this week to understand situational awareness. It's an example that was shown to me over a decade ago after 9/11 by an Israeli security team who demonstrated it at a local mall. I won't say which one it is. And they put a backpack next to a trash can. And we observed it for 2 hours. And people walked by it, security walked by it, law enforcement walked by it, and nobody asked anything about this very nice looking black bag sitting next to a trash can. And he said, there's the problem. Nobody's aware of their environment, nobody's aware of their situation. This week, we saw the same thing. I forgot how many terabytes or whatever, it was 3 terabytes of data, of videos, of pictures of people near one of the bags for the explosion in Boston. Nobody checked anything, and it was inside the lines, the rope lines. Nobody did anything because they were focused on, as you were saying, they were focused on the runners. Even the security was focused on the runners and their safety and not looking at a bag. Something as simple as somebody walking up saying, excuse me, is this your bag? Yes, it is. Okay, good enough. Could you put it on the other side? Same thing goes with us here on campus. Somebody walks away from a bag, it's easy enough just to simply ask, I'm sorry, you forgot your bag. And the person says, hey, it's not mine. Then that's a good indicator to call someone. That's all it takes. No panics, just it's not somebody's bag. Okay, that's situational awareness. That's safety. Okay? Within the understanding of these factors, that's just one. It's not a lone factor in and of itself, as Diane was saying. It's not all of a sudden call 911, we got a problem here. It's just one simple characteristic. A lone person leaves something. Columbine was an example of that. Things placed all over the school. Establishing a threat assessment team is our next goal. We're still in the process. We're still discussing it. We still want to achieve it. And it's going to take a group effort in order to do it. But a threat assessment team has been successful in dealing with these issues on school campuses. Okay? And it's a unique approach to safety and security because it's not the job of security alone. The threat assessment team is made up of individuals within the institution, and in some cases with our situation, we can include some people within the community too. So we reach out to those people with unique skills to sit on a regular basis, not an annual basis, on a regular basis. What we're proposing is every month they're together. And whether they actually have something to look at or not, they're in a sense training. educating themselves, training themselves to incidents that occurred anywhere in the country. But that's our first goal. The history of many school shootings revealed that the attack was preceded by a threatening statement or behavior. Every one of them has been shown that a statement had been made to somebody regarding how they felt about that institution or that business or that location. Right? And every action leading up to it was there, whether it be the stockpiling of ammunition, the buying of certain weapons, whatever it may be. And there was always key indicators. Threat assessment focuses on a narrow group of individuals. We're not profiling the entire, going through everybody's file on campus to determine who are possible threats. That's not the point of it. We narrow it down based on an actual threat made or behavior made. The basic function of the college threat assessment team would be to provide consultation and assistance. They're not the enforcement group. They're not the action group. They're the group that allows the individuals to process the information and give it to the appropriate people for action. A recommendation based on a couple successful threat assessment groups at leading institutions are made up of faculty, campus police and/or security, mental health professionals, administrative representatives of human resources, and student services. Why both? Because we're not just targeting and looking at students. We're also looking at anybody that could be a threat to your safety. And that can be anybody, past and present. So it's key to remember that we're not just focusing or targeting on students. In a lot of these cases, we're seeing that it's former, especially at the university level, it's individuals that in a sense that are either finishing, completing, or have completed, or are no longer here, as in the case of St. Louis's most recent incident. Okay? So we would be looking in the wrong direction if we really think that we need to just focus on students. It would be an injustice to them to do so. And then we have to take into consideration our community and what resources we have there that we can bring to the table for our discussions so that we continue to grow in strength and understanding of this complex situation. To narrow it down to, say, just law enforcement would mean that we would be only looking at it from one direction. And by opening it up, we bring all those, in a sense, OODA loops into the room. So it helps us to actually be safer. This is the process, and I apologize, I tried to make this clear last night. The process is pretty simple. We identify the threat. Simply, for those who can't see it, notify the team of any communication of a threat to harm someone or behavior suggesting violent intentions. The student gets mad, flips over the chair as they run out of the room. I'm not going to take this anymore. It's not an explicit threat. Okay? It's an implicit threat. It's not made directly toward anybody, but it may be something in which the college would like to know what happened. It should be documented. And a somewhat observation by the faculty member observing it, or the student observing, we would hope the person would be observed for a few minutes to see what they do. They get in their car and they leave? Yes. It's not the end of the situation. Typically it would be. But we'd be more safer if at that point at least the college is notified of the incident, because then campus security would know if the individual comes back on campus, they want to at least be observed. Okay? The next step would be to evaluate the seriousness of it. That is ongoing within your situation, but more importantly to the threat team. Threat team then gets it, the incident, looks at it, what occurred after it, what continued. If we realize the individual has emotional issues, then we may continue to intervene in a greater sense. But if we find out the person just found out that they lost their parent, or their parents have cancer, or they themselves are ill, well, then we may simply move it over to the side to receive. What we typically do is to intervene with them on an emotional side. It may be something the faculty member could take a part of or the advisor could work with. But if we see it's a greater concern, we move into the third category. Take protective action and notify potential victims. Now we see that the threat has some merit. So the threat assessment team, after looking at it, realized that this wasn't just somebody having a bad day. Okay, didn't get their Red Bull on the way to college. Okay? This is simply something that we have to look at. The idea behind this is that at this stage is where it becomes very important that the institution has a very set plan of action that we take. That would still be in the process, like we'll show it to you, but we'll develop it. But we implement that plan at that time. And we move into monitoring safety plan as the document assessment and intervention follow-up to make sure it's working. If we've done it right, even if that individual is as violent as we've seen in the past, a Cho, Virginia Tech, okay? If we can intervene with counseling, if we can get them on the right track, if we can find out, actually, they do have medication. We may not have access to it, but the in-person informs us of it. It allows us to find out whether or not the individual is properly taking it. And in helping that individual to do so, everything is resolved in that sense. And no official criminal action would ever have to take place. So in a sense, we are looking out at the best interest of the individual as well as the safety of the campus by doing it this way. Our priorities is our people first, ourselves second, but third is the individual who may assault. This process takes that into place. We take all three categories into play. Because to remove the third one, we end up with, in a sense, a Virginia Tech or a Sandy Hook situation in which once they were outside our doors, we're not concerned. This approach actually says we're a community. So our concern isn't just when we get them off the campus. Our concern is the entire community and the safety of the individual and the community as a whole.
Okay, we've done everything right, and we're aware of our situational awareness, and we know the OODA loop, and we've got our threat assessment team, and things still go awry. Bad things still happen to good people. So what we want to do with the approach, with facilities, with everything, is come up with a campus and community response plan on how we can respond to a situation, to know what to do. And with using the OODA loop, with using what you're able to do, with using the facility benefits that we have, this is what we want you to look at. It's a short video, and just let's look at it, and we'll talk about it when it's done. But put yourself in this situation. This is actually an office building, but it can definitely be used in any classroom, any office building that we have here on campus. So go ahead and watch the video. Thank you.
It may feel like just another day at the office, but occasionally, life feels more like an action movie than reality. The authorities are working hard to protect you and to protect our public spaces. But sometimes bad people do bad things. Their motivations are different. The warning signs may vary, but the devastating effects are the same. And unfortunately, you need to be prepared for the worst. If you were ever to find yourself in the middle of an active shooter event, your survival may depend on whether or not you have a plan. The plan doesn't have to be complicated. There are 3 things you could do that make a difference. Run, hide, fight. First and foremost, if you can get out, do. Always try and escape or evacuate, even when others insist on staying. Encourage others to leave with you, but don't let them slow you down with indecision. Remember what's important, you, not your stuff. Leave your belongings behind and try to find a way to get out safely. Trying to get yourself out of harm's way needs to be your #1 priority. Once you are out of the line of fire, try to prevent others from walking into the danger zone and call 911. If you can't get out safely, you need to find a place to hide. Act quickly and quietly. Try to secure your hiding place the best you can. Turn out lights, and if possible, remember to lock doors. Silence your ringer and vibration mode on your cell phone. And if you can't find a safe room or closet, try to conceal yourself behind large objects that may protect you. Do your best to remain quiet and calm. As a last resort, if your life is at risk, whether you are alone or working together as a group, fight. Act with aggression. Improvise weapons. Disarm him. And commit to taking the shooter down, no matter what. Try to be aware of your environment. Always have an exit plan. Know that in an incident like this, victims are generally chosen randomly. The event is unpredictable and may evolve quickly. The first responders on the scene are not there to evacuate or tend to the injured. They are well trained and are there to stop the shooter. Your actions can make a difference for your safety and survival. Be aware and be prepared. And if you find yourself facing an active shooter, there are 3 key things you need to remember to survive. Run, hide, fight.
My technical assistant. Thanks, Martin. Okay, we're just going to talk about what you saw in there just quickly. The key to this is thinking about this before it happens. In a crisis situation, you're going to shut down unless you thought about this ahead of time. That's why we're bringing it forward. That's why we want you to be a part of it. We're not going to be, put our head in the sand and just say, it's not going to happen, so if I don't think about it, it won't happen. Well, we know, unfortunately, that's not that's not what really the world is about anymore. So that's the key, is thinking about it before it happens, assessing your situation and your environment before you need to act and react. So run. That's the first thing that you can do. Even in Columbine, students who ran out of the library, they lived because they ran out of the library. They weren't going to go after one person when they had 50 in the library. So if a path is available and you think you can do it, run would obviously be your first option. Remove yourself from the danger. That's what we want to do. If you can evacuate. Encourage others to go with you. That doesn't mean don't go trying to get somebody else out. You know, some people just are not going to want the help. You also don't have to run out of a door. You have heavy objects in your room. If you need to, put a chair through the window. Sorry, Ed. Put a chair through the window and get out a window if you have to. Don't, think unconventional here. Start using those creative processes that you use to teach and instruct in the classroom into your own safety. And then once you're out of the line of fire, try to prevent others from walking in. You saw him grab the guy on the bike. Lucky the guy on the bike didn't just pound him, okay? But kept him from going into the building, and then call 911. If you don't have your cell phone with you, somebody, that's a good thing about the world, unless it's AT&T, but I've got Verizon. There's other buildings. Run to another building with a phone if you have to. There's enough phones in the world, 911, and don't think, oh, somebody else is already calling. 911, if you've never been in a communication center, has a bank of lines. So it's not like you're going to be keeping someone else from calling because you're calling 911. So go ahead and call 911. Thank you. Isn't he good? I didn't even ask for it. It was like we're in sync here, okay? Then we go to hide. If you can't get out, try to hide. And you want to hide under big stuff if you can. You don't want to just hide underneath a little desk like they did at Virginia Tech. You want to hide somewhere away from the visual if at all possible. You don't want them to know that you're there. When you're hiding, if you can turn out the lights so it may appear that that office or that classroom wasn't being used anyway, and maybe that's the key that will have them go by. Remember to be very, very quiet, okay? You want to be quiet. You don't want to bring any attention to you at all. Who wanted to gag the one gal in the thing where she's like, and I'm thinking, well, that would be appropriate. And then I'm thinking, yeah, I think it would be appropriate. But you're going to have those kind of reactions, and that was a perfect demonstration of someone who was caught completely off guard that something bad could happen in her world. That's what happens. You panic unless you've already had this mindset that you're aware of your surroundings. You know what's available to you. You know where the exits are. You know where you can hide in your classroom. If you can't get out of your office, make sure you can hide where you're out of it. And I know it sounds silly, but even take vibration off your phone. Have you ever had your phone sitting somewhere and have it vibrate and you can hear it as well as a ringer? These people are at their top performance right now. That vibration could actually, if it's with you and it may be sitting on something metal, so you don't want to bring any attention to you at all. So try to get that as well when you do it. The last resort is fight. But when you do, you may have more than one person in the classroom, so come up with a plan if you can. You don't need to have one person be the aggressor. The more people that is trying to be aggressive and approaching this subject and targeting this subject, the more likely you're going to have a successful or a more successful end to this. And I'd like to say everything's going to be roses, but bad things may happen. They won't happen to all 30 of you.
Can I interject something?
I'm sorry.
What you're trying to do is disrupt his thought process.
Yeah.
He's focused on going in and shooting whatever target he has or doing whatever act of violence he has when he enters that room. Remember, he's going through his thought process.
Mm-hmm.
What you're wanting to do is disrupt that. So throwing things at him, running at him in mass numbers is going to disrupt his thought process. And because he's so focused and in tune, he's going to be completely off his game for at least a moment or two, which allows you to go back to run if you have to.
Right, then you're reassessing. Yeah, because like Mark said, if you can interrupt him and that means 4 people can run around him to get out, that's 4 more people, okay? Or whatever it is, if his bag is ripped out of his arm, and now his ammunition's gone. Whatever it is that you're going to interrupt that thought process, you want to do that. And the fight part, again, that's going to be your last, what we love to do is everybody be able to run, call 911, and the cavalry shows up. You know, here we are. That's what we want, but that's not always what's going to happen. But it's got to be those thought processes before you get there. I can't tell you where to hide in your office or in your classroom. I can't tell you what your escape route is. How many people are in 3 or 4 different classes throughout campus? You know, you may be in different classrooms. You're in different offices. And you have meetings. When you walk into a meeting, you should look to see where the exits are. We do this for fire all the time. We practice fire drills, and nobody says, well, isn't that a little extreme? Why are we practicing fire drills? Do you want them to be, if we practice fire drills, there will be a fire. No. But then when we start practicing exits for a shooter or something like that, everybody's like, well, don't you think that's a little extreme? We'll frighten the students if we do that. If we bring this up, we will frighten the students. Well, have you ever done a fire drill and then the student not be able to concentrate the rest of the day because they were worried about a fire now? It's a thought process that we need to go into. So if you have to get to fight, think about what you have in every single one of your classrooms. What weapons do you have available to you? I can pick up a chair and throw it at somebody. Okay? Miss Nobles maybe wouldn't be able to pick up the same chair I could pick up. And she told me not to pick on her, so that's why I'm picking on her. So, yeah. But assess what your abilities are. And you have to know this ahead of time. You have to know what you're physically capable of doing and what you're mentally capable of doing. Because that's going to come down to whether or not you can really commit when the rubber meets the road. So that's why, because if you go at them with 30 people, or with 4 people, and one's got a fire extinguisher and one's got a chair, what happens as soon as you do that? You start the OODA loop. You're observing a whole new situation, and now you're figuring out, now is the exit available, and do I have time to get out, and is that what I'm going to do? You're doing the observe, the orient, the decide, and the act. It's the decision-making process. You've been doing for your entire life. Don't get hooked up on, well, did you see that diagram? That diagram was really confusing. I can't do that. You do that diagram every time you get in your car, you drive, you're doing the OODA loop constantly. You just didn't call it OODA loop. You called it defensive driving, hopefully. Okay? So,
Can I interject?
yeah.
I want to stress this part to you because this was not in place at Virginia Tech. Run and hide was. The students followed that procedure. Okay? And so they hid. And he knew that they would hide. And in a sense, I hate to put it bluntly, but they were executed hiding when there were a number of them standing in front of them. And they heard the emergency personnel banging on the doors trying to get through, but the individual Cho had chained the doors. But they were confident that they were going to come through the door, so they just buckled down and braced. When in fact, what would have thrown Cho off, because the guys, much of the victims were bigger than him, would have been just to come at him, which we saw in Sandy Hook with the heroic act of the principal and the school psychologist. Threw him off. They said saved more lives than they actually knew, because that's when he actually started getting off track. He got thrown off. His loop stopped cycling properly. Stress hit in. So when we say fight and commit, it's in a sense to be safe for you. We're not looking at you to be Chuck Norris's and going in. No, it's actually to be able, in a sense, to start the process again so you get past him. Now, if his gun is lost, I want to add this with this. If his gun is dropped, if he has a weapon, one technique that was very important to show was don't go picking it up and running out into the hallway. Remember, your guys are not personnel. Throw it in the trash can, take the trash can with you, whatever it may be. But your goal is to get safe. Okay? Your goal is to get safe. So we don't want you to be, we're not going to show any techniques ever, I hope, of disarming or defensive tactics, whatever it may be, okay? Creating assault teams or whatever it is. It's this. And that's what was shown from Virginia Tech because they were adults as opposed to Sandy Hook. We want to look at what went wrong there because that's the closest. And what went right in the Lone Star college, that's a community college campuses, okay? What went right, and I'll, if I may interrupt, what was perfect and what we're trying to do with Daryl and Ed was in January in Lone Star, they had issues pertaining to communications because they had a shooting on campus. We never heard that. It was a local situation. But they realized what problems they had and they started looking at lighting, they started looking at communications, started looking at the blue screens, they started looking at phone services, they got them all switched in place. And when it happened most recently with the knives, because remember, we're not talking about active shooters, we're talking about active violence or active killing. Everything went in proper place. As a matter of fact, the individual wasn't taken down by a police officer, he was taken down by a student who was running away from it. The guy was right in front of him and he tackled him. And the other students came over to assist. And then the security came in and actually did all the disarming and everything else. So it went in, the Lone Star is the prime example of this working. And all the community, elementary schools and high schools, got word through the text system and went on the lockdown as well, just in case there was another incident or that he got off campus. So it was a community involvement, and Lone Star worked as an example that this can work. People were hurt. Nobody was killed. So that's kind of the key thing that we're looking at. We're not saying it'll never happen, but if we're aware of it, prepare for it mentally. Remember, the orientation side of the OODA loop has all those little boxes inside of it. We have to keep filling those boxes because you can't draw from something you don't have. So if a thought wasn't in your head, you're not going to be able to pull from it. So that's kind of the key thing. Sorry for interrupting.
No. It's a show. Remember, it's the Diane and Mark show. I'm sorry, Mark and Diane. So that's why we're here today. Okay. The last slide that I've got here is just so that you know. There's more coming for Orientation Week of Fall 2013, okay? We're going to just continue to build on this. It's not that we're saying, okay, here it is, have fun with that, and OODA Loop's up there on the website if you want to look at it. Everybody here, you know, this is a priority because we all know that our most valuable resource is us and our students, and this is how we're going to keep those resources safe. I mean, even if we got to break Ed's window, okay, as long as we keep the resources of faculty, staff, and students safe, then we've done our job. So there's more coming. We're going to continue to build on this foundation. There's a threat assessment team. All of this is coming down the pipe. I know that we presented you with a whole lot of information today. And you know, we are more than willing. We can take questions. Time's getting to be a little bit, you know, I know you can only take so much before that morning coffee starts to hit. But we're more than willing to answer some questions, some short questions now, or if you want to process this for a little bit, ask any questions during the day that you'd like to ask. We are going to have an open forum that we're going to be at today that you can ask any questions at all. Mark?
I gave you a wonderful little story to end on to make you feel better, that you can deal with what we're talking about. Story came out of Sandy Hook of the little boy, and I forgot what his age is. I think he's around 7 or 8. But he looked to his teacher. She was getting ready to figure out what to do going out the door. And he said, I'll lead them out. I know martial arts.
Yeah.
And that little boy led 6 other kids out. That's how they got to that residence outside. He led them. He took charge. He looked down the hallway, and he actually took them through all the situation that was going on and let a little 8-year-old boy did it because he was committed to do so. And he actually led them and took charge and got them all out. Now, once he got there, you know, he relaxed. So the adrenaline was over with. But he actually did very well in leading that out, you know, a true hero at that age. Yes, ma'am?
Quick question. Should we consider having a statement on our syllabus, talking to our students the first week of class, and maybe even showing them that clip? Is that something you've talked about, or can we consider that?
Yeah, the clip is on YouTube.
But I'm saying, I mean, as a
And we were
whole
talking
faculty-
about incorporating it into the college
Yeah,
100
the
and
first year
101 programs,
experience would
first
be
year
incorporated.
experience.
But students may not have to take that pass.
Correct.
I'm saying,
Yeah.
our first day, our syllabus day, we have
Yeah.
other statements we have to have on our syllabus.
Uh-huh.
I think if we could collaborate on the verbiage and have it on there, take 5 minutes to talk about it, and if they just see that clip, it'll stick in their mind. I think,
It
you know,
will.
educated we all
And what we
are.
want to do is, and I think we're doing that anyway as we improve the other one, would be the little guides that are around to actually update those so that you could go over the emergency guide, which we kind of are supposed to do anyway. That first day of school is going over the emergency guide, and like I said, that's a little outdated on a couple things.
Yeah.
So it'd be a perfect time not to draw any fear from them, but you could put on your syllabus probably, overview of emergency guide. and
Mark,
then go
I'll
over
be honest
emergency
with you, if
procedures.
I'm in that situation, I'm not gonna look that guide up, and I'm not.
No, no, no,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
no,
I'm gonna
I'm
remember
talking
that
to you
video.
I'm talking to you about the first day of class.
Well,
I'm not talking about going to the guide, but what I'm talking about is we're supposed to, the first day of class, go over emergency procedures anyway.
Yeah.
We really are, so.
Again, and I think the visual would impact them more than us standing
They're
up
gonna
saying,
remember
this is
that.
the guide, look, we have emergency.
Right.
Although I will tell you that if your shooter looks like that,
that's obvious.
I wish they would have used the guy on the bicycle, but
Yeah, the guy on the bicycle would have been perfect, because again, most shooters, it's kind of like being in police work. If all the burglars wore little masks, our job would be so much easier, okay? But they don't, just a second, yes. Julie?
The other thing I would like to encourage people to do is many faculty members and staff members on campus do submit incident reports about students who are concerning. They're exhibiting behavior that they're concerned about because it's out of the ordinary, or there may be some mental health concerns or things of that nature. Or if students are violating the student code of conduct in terms of disrupting classes or other sorts of violations. Last year we had 171 of those incident reports filed on campus, and this year thus far we've had about 130. And that gives us the opportunity through the behavioral concerns team to do some early intervention with students who might have some difficulties. And then as we develop this threat assessment team, the behavioral concerns team will sit at that table so that we can take that to another level to make sure as we assess those students and determine there may be some threat, that we have an intervention strategy documented and planned and follow up, because we do follow up on all of those reports that we receive.
Faculty, you assess your students all the time academically. This is just moving it into a different arena. Assessment is okay, and that's what you're doing. Like I said, you assess your students academically all the time, and you see when they're starting to slip, and you know when they come in the classroom that, boy, things just don't look right today, Go ahead, and if that gut is telling you something, listen to it. You had a question?
Can you bring up that YouTube?
oh, sure.
Yeah.
Address, and also just like, where is that form, or who do we call if we have a concern directly to the, on campus?
Actually,
Is there,
what was Julie?
Julie, the form that they use for a
The
concern,
Maxian incident report form is on the employee tab of STARS.
it's a Maxian.
And I know a number of faculty also use the ARC hotline. A number of individuals will call student services either to my extension or another extension. No matter how we receive information, we can react to it, but the Maxian incident report provides us with a database that we can track that information. So it's on the employee tab, there's a button there that you click on. It starts with your demographic information, and it provides a place to provide information about the individuals involved, including if there's an alleged student, any witnesses, and a narrative section where you can summarize whatever has occurred.
Now, can I ask something? Can that form be used for individuals that we know, whether they're students or only students?
It has been used primarily for students. There have been some other sorts of things involving visitors or whatever.
Because the key thing is also, I put it, is staff and faculty. We have to check ourselves.
And I think that's something we still need to work on developing, is a system in which we would report. Right now, I think those reports would go directly to human resources. If they came through Maxian, I would be referring that material to Tasha.
Because work-related incidents, if you saw the numbers there, those are employees. Okay, so, and we are still
A business.
a business as well. So in order to create that